parcel tax for the Palo Alto School District. Kevin will also present this one.
All right, so Measure O is an extension of a current around $820 per year parcel tax that is currently expiring in 2021, which makes up around 7% of the Palo Alto Unified School budget. Currently, there are a set of exemptions that are generally found statewide, so it just does the same thing. And there is an oversight committee that does monitor progress. What this proposition does is it extends it for another 6 years and continues with a 2% maximum inflation adjustment. It also adds new items onto what the money can be used for, but they're not specific projects. They're more like maintaining teacher quality or funding just general good things, or just general benefits for the students. The annual impacts is about $16 million from the people who live within the Palo Alto Unified School District boundaries and adjusted inflation. Supporters say that the money is necessary to preserve the high quality of the schools, and it provides a stable funding for the teachers and technology and other at-risk programs in this economic climate, of which COVID is basically hanging on everyone's necks at this point. The money is not to be used for administrative costs, though. Opponents say that currently the school district is on a long-term population decline, with the student funding per capita being one of the highest in the state at around $25,000 per student, and that we should not be voting on any tax measures until COVID passes.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. Mary Jo asks, what is a qualifying senior who could get the exemption from this tax?
The qualifying exemption for will be anyone that is above the age of 65, or people who are on a supplemental security income or on Social Security.
Okay, and we also have a question here from Katie. Can you list any specific things that the revenue should be used for?
Again, so there are no projects. What happens is that Measure O has a set of items that you must justify any project on. In this case, it would be things like anything that would retain teachers will be valid under this parcel tax. Anything that improves technology within the school district is under this parcel tax. Anything that maintains mental health services is under this parcel tax. But there are nothing specific.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the next local measure, which is Measure S. Katie will present that for us. Katie, are you ready?
Unmute yourself if you are.
You may need to unmute, Katie.
Some people are shyer than others,
No,
obviously.
okay.
Just kidding.
I was 2 sentences in when I caught on. So I'm going to tell you about the Santa Clara Valley Water District parcel tax. And this is a tax, so it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. The way it is now, every parcel in the water district, which stretches basically from Palo Alto to San Jose, pays about exactly 0.6 cents per square foot of property. This works out to an average payment of $68 per year. And for comparison, if you have it's $260 per acre. So if you have an acre yard, you pay just a bit more. The current parcel tax expires in 2028. And currently an oversight committee ensures that the water district is effectively using the money to fulfill their missions of flood control, which has been an issue in Palo Alto and San Jose. Their other missions are providing reliable, clean drinking water, as drought and global warming make our water needs harder to meet, and maintaining hundreds of miles of creeks and rivers, protecting water supplies from natural disasters, and maintaining and building dams. The water district has an annual budget of $609 million, according to the Mercury News. This proposition will permanently extend the parcel tax for the water district. Supporters say it will provide a stable, oh, I'm sorry, I need the next slide, please. Supporters say it will provide a stable form of funding for the district, which is needed to plan for projects as needs change due to environmental conditions. Opponents say, we have 8 years before the current parcel tax expires, so why are we acting on this now? Opponents also say that the oversight committee is not independent of the water district and voters should have the opportunity to hold the district accountable. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions at this time. So we will move on to Measure RR. David.
Measure RR is another local tax increase. So it required 2/3 majority. So specifically, this is covering 3 counties and their in-transit agencies. So historically, Caltrans, which is the local passenger train service within this area, gets its fundings from 2 different sources. It gets its fundings from fares, and it gets 17% of its funding from what's called voluntary contributions from the transit agencies of the 3 counties, which are San Francisco, San Mateo, and Santa Clara. But those contributions are voluntary. And what this proposition does is it replaces that voluntary contribution with a sales tax over the 3 counties of 0.0125% over the next 30 years, which will intended both to compensate for the very dramatic loss in ridership fees due to COVID, and also with the intention to expand the use of electrified service, which is already planned in their expansion. So they're already doing electrified service. This will expand and accelerate it. So that's the intention of this, and it will raise $100 million a year, 30 which is to replace that voluntary contribution, and the other 70 is really to expand ongoing maintenance and for the new infrastructure. So next slide. So from the supporters say, there's a couple really arguments in this slide. So one is COVID really did a bad number on Caltrain. Their ridership really dropped, their fares really dropped, so they really need additional funding to avoid shutting down. But also, Caltrans has a very ambitious schedule for upgrading, modernizing, reduce air pollution, electrification, more operation following electric service, and the additional funding from this tax will accelerate that program quite a bit and really improve the transit in the area. And also, this is supported by all 3 counties and all 4 transit agencies involved, so it has really broad support from that standpoint. Now, on the opponent side, they're arguing that COVID has all sorts of unforeseen implications. Caltrain service may never recover, in which case throwing additional money at that is a waste of time. Sales taxes themselves are pretty regressive. There's better ways to collect money for this. And really, if COVID is the problem, a 30-year tax is not the solution. You should do something much more short-term. And fundamentally, there's a general unhappiness with Caltrain operation and service, and they feel that this is just not an organization they want to support. Questions? Okay,
yes, we do have a couple of questions. How are the current voluntary contributions from the 3, is it from the 3 counties or the 3 transit agencies determined?
I don't know.
And
I can
what are
that.
So, okay, so you actually says it's supported by all 3 counties and 4 transit agencies. Another question was about what are the transit agencies affected?
So I can answer both of those questions. So the 4 transit agencies, one of which is Caltrain itself because it's independent of the other 3. The other 3 is VTA, Samtrans, and Muni. And the way that the payment structure is done is based off an internal agreement among the transit agencies. and their associated county board of supervisors on a joint powers agreement.
So what was the,
And, oh, the other question was, how are the current voluntary contributions? I'm sorry, you just answered that? Yeah. Then there's also a question, which I'm actually sticking in here. Who would actually be managing this, the sales tax fund?
Caltrain. Caltrain Caltrain as its own independent body will be managing the money. Which is one thing I was going to bring up to David is during the presentation you mix up Caltrain and Caltrans, and they're separate things.
you are correct. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our presentation. On behalf of the speakers, I want to thank you for taking time to learn about the measures we'll be voting on this fall. If you have questions after today, here are some resources that you can consult. The League of Women Voters of Palo Alto website, Voters Edge, which is the League of Women Voters of California's voter information website. Reminder that the deadline to register is October 19th. You can register online with our Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters, or on the Secretary of State website. You can register and vote in person at vote centers, which will be open from October 31 to November 3. Keep your eye out for your voting material, which is coming in the mail in this week and the next week. Thank you all for joining us, and be sure to vote.